When your heart stops, it doesn't feel dramatic. There's no countdown, no warning. 1 second, your body is alive with motion, and the next, everything changes. This is second zero. Your heart has stopped beating. Blood pressure collapses instantly. The 5 liters of blood that had been moving through your body moments ago suddenly becomes still. Oxygen is no longer being delivered. Cells throughout your body are cut off from the system that has kept them alive every second of your existence. But your brain doesn't realize it immediately. For several seconds, it continues operating on the oxygen that's already there. Neurons still fire. Electrical signals still move through intricate networks built over an entire lifetime. Your thoughts continue. Your awareness, whatever it was focused on in that final instant, still exists. For a brief moment, you are still completely you. Then the clock starts to close in. Around 10 seconds after cardiac arrest, the brain begins to recognize that something is terribly wrong. The brain consumes roughly 20% of the body's oxygen supply despite making up only a small fraction of its mass. It is the most energy-demanding organ you have, and it can survive only minutes without fresh oxygen. The cerebral cortex, the part of the brain responsible for conscious thought, perception, and self-awareness, begins shutting down. This is when most people lose consciousness. From the outside, it appears simple. Your eyes stop focusing. Your body becomes limp. Your breathing ceases. To everyone watching, you seem gone. But inside the brain, the story may only be beginning. In 2023, neuroscientists at the University of Michigan monitored the brain activity of comatose patients as life support was withdrawn. Researchers expected to see neural activity slowly fade away, a quiet descent into silence. That is not what happened. In some patients, the brain erupted with activity. Seconds after oxygen levels collapsed, researchers recorded an intense surge of gamma waves sweeping across the brain. These are the same brain waves associated with consciousness, memory, awareness, and vivid dreaming. The activity was not chaotic. It appeared organized, focused, concentrated in regions connected to visual processing and self-perception, including an area long associated with out-of-body experiences. The lead researcher later described the spike as crazy high, and suddenly, an unsettling possibility emerged. What if the dying brain doesn't simply shut down? What if, in its final moments, it becomes hyperactive? For decades, people revived after clinical death have described experiences that sound strangely consistent across cultures and generations. A sensation of floating outside the body, a profound feeling of peace, bright lights, encounters with deceased loved ones. And then there is the phenomenon many survivors struggle to explain, the life review. People often imagine it as a montage of major milestones, weddings, achievements, celebrations. But survivors frequently describe something entirely different. They remember ordinary moments, a bicycle ride from childhood, rain against a window on an afternoon they had long forgotten, sitting quietly at a kitchen table, a random Tuesday that once seemed meaningless. One survivor described seeing a white cat sitting on a staircase during his experience. He had no memory of the place. After recovering, he described the staircase and apartment layout to his mother. She told him they had once lived there when he was an infant, beside a neighbor who owned a white cat. He had been 14 months old when they moved away. Experiences like this raise questions neuroscience still cannot fully answer. Does the brain preserve far more than we realize? Are memories we believe forgotten still buried somewhere inside us? And in those final moments, does the brain unlock everything at once? No one knows. But the evidence increasingly suggests that death may not be an immediate blackout. It may be a process, one far more complex than we once imagined. Meanwhile, the rest of the body is beginning to fail. Around 30 seconds after the heart stops, oxygen deprivation spreads everywhere. Cells switch from aerobic respiration, the efficient process that requires oxygen, to anaerobic metabolism, an emergency backup system that produces far less energy and rapidly generates lactic acid. Acidity builds inside tissues. Muscles relax completely. The jaw falls open. Eyelids loosen. If you were standing, you've already collapsed. Your pupils dilate and become fixed. The tiny muscles that normally control light response no longer function. Your eyes remain physically intact, but the systems behind them are shutting down. And yet, researchers studying cardiac arrest continue to encounter reports that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. Dr. Sam Parnia and his colleagues spent years examining survivors of cardiac arrest through large-scale studies conducted across multiple hospitals. Many patients reported awareness during periods when their hearts were not beating. Some described hearing conversations in the room. Others recalled observing medical staff working on their bodies. A smaller number reported vivid visual experiences despite showing no outward signs of consciousness. Whether these events are the result of hidden brain activity, fragmented memory formation, or something science has yet to explain remains deeply debated. But one pattern appears again and again. Most survivors do not describe death as terrifying. They describe it as peaceful. Many report an overwhelming sense of calm. Some describe feeling connected to people they had lost long ago. Others say they felt reluctant to return. As the first minute approaches, the body enters a critical threshold. Damage is becoming serious, but not necessarily irreversible. This distinction matters. At 1 minute, resuscitation is still highly possible. CPR can maintain limited blood flow. Defibrillation may restart the heart. Brain cells, though vulnerable, can often survive several minutes before permanent injury occurs. In other words, you exist in a strange biological limbo, not alive in the conventional sense, but not fully beyond recovery either. Your skin begins to pale as circulation disappears from surface capillaries. Inside your cells, membranes weaken under rising acidity. Enzymes once safely contained begin leaking outward, starting the earliest phase of autolysis, the process by which the body begins breaking itself down. But at this stage, it has only just begun. Most cells are still intact, still waiting for oxygen, waiting for a heartbeat that may or may not return. And if it doesn't, if no one arrives, no CPR begins, no shock restarts the rhythm, then this first minute becomes the final minute of your life. Yet according to everything researchers are beginning to uncover, the brain may not spend that minute fading quietly into darkness. It may spend it erupting with activity. And perhaps that is why people who return from the edge of death often come back changed. They rarely speak about money, or status, or the things they once believed mattered most. Instead, they talk about time. Time with family. Time with people they love. Time spent fully present in moments that once seemed forgettable. Because in the end, those ordinary moments may have been the real substance of a life. Not the milestones, not the achievements, but the unnoticed afternoons. The conversations you barely remember. The small fragments of existence you assumed were disappearing forever. Your brain may have been recording all of it. And in the final moments between life and death, it might play it back one last time.